I want to say hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you to another edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio in Washington, D.C. and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I am joined today by some amazing co-hosts, my dear friends Tami Gaines and Candice Harper. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh man, a lot going on in the world this week.
Brian, we shouldn't call this show "Wake Up with Soulivity." We should call it "In the Bed with Soulivity."
That's funny. There's a lot going on this week.
Yeah.
How has your week been for both of you?
Mine's been good. Sorry, I had a coughing fit. I actually had somewhat of a sad occasion yesterday because my good friend, who I've known since I was 19 years old, we buried her father in Arlington yesterday.
Oh no!
But when I tell you that even out of the saddest occasions come the most beautiful, because when I was young,
cool.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, it's cool to be in Arlington.
That's amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Arlington is
beautiful place. When I was young and in undergraduate school, this was a family that, there's always that family that invites all their kids' friends and invites everybody over. And they're a big Italian family. They used to make us a huge spread. And I got to see so many people from their family that I haven't seen in like 20, 25 years. So it was a beautiful week. Even though we were saying farewell to her father, who luckily had a very long, fortunate life, we still had this very beautiful reunion of, people that I just adore, but just haven't seen for years. So it's a week, yeah.
That's nice.
Wow, that's beautiful. And the weather was great yesterday too.
The weather was so beautiful yesterday. It looked like a movie scene.
Wow.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Tami, what about you? What have you been up to? What's been going on this week for you?
Just a long week. So my daughter is a junior in high school, which is the hardest year of high school.
Yes, it is.
So between she plays softball, she's doing SAT prep, she's overloaded with homework. So it's been a consistently busy time of the year.
Yeah.
I have to do Tammy's taxi. Tammy's taxi. Everybody in. But let me tell you something.
You have a big SUV, a big van.
No, not a van. I'm too cool for a minivan. Let's get that straight.
I got you.
Yeah, I drive a really nice Tahoe, which is always full of kids and bikes and bat bags and whatever else. But last night, this was so crazy. Let me be careful how I say this. My friend invited me to go out to this event last night. I paid $80 to go see a medium.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous. It was horrible. After I said yes, I went on YouTube to look up this guy, and I'm like, oh, he's a complete fraud.
Oh no.
So he was like, okay. First of all, he was actually funny. I think he's from New York. He was kind of a comedian, but he's like, you have somebody deceased. Yeah, we all do. Everybody sitting here does.
I'm sensing somebody deceased in your
family. He's like, do you have somebody that departed? And everyone's like, which one of us are you talking to? And then he's like, did the name start with Michael? Anybody with a departed Michael? It was the worst of the scam. And then he's like, he struggled before he died. I was like, yeah, most people struggle before they die. No insight. Oh my God. I was texting my daughter video Like every 5 minutes, she was laughing so hard because we watched his entire act on YouTube the day before.
I see you wearing this color blue every once in a while.
Exactly, just like like anybody. They're saying that they love you and that they appreciate you. Like, yeah, okay.
Wow.
Anyway, it was bananas because I really like her. Like the woman I went with is amazing.
Wow.
And because she was amazing when she was like, "Hey, do you want to go to this thing?" I was like, "Yeah." Before I actually saw like what that thing was.
Thought about what it might be.
Wow.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
Thank you both for that. Listen, I've been looking forward to this show since the verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case was read early this week, and because this is a subject that is also close to my heart. I have several family members that are victims of sexual assault, and so I always keep them in my heart whenever I talk about it, or whenever we even do stories about it in the magazine. And so before we begin, I just want to remind that, listen, all our audience, this is an interactive conversation. We want your questions, comments, thoughts. Just post them right to our live chats on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll include you in the conversation. So why don't we go ahead and get started? It's nearly 3 decades after the E. Jean Carroll case. E. Jean Carroll claimed Donald Trump raped her in a dressing room. And then this week and last week, the pair faced off in court. And after only 3 hours of deliberations, the jury in the civil case returned a verdict that Mr. Trump was liable for sexually abusing Miss Carroll, but not raping her, and awarded the writer a total of $5 million in damages, which includes the defamation claim. And so I guess the first thing that I'll ask both of you, and I'll go to you, Tami, first, any first reactions just about the verdict itself?
About the well, I mean, just about the verdict. I mean, you're talking to a victim of sexual assault.
See.
So, and I think if you talk to most women, they've had a near miss.
Yeah. That's true. Very true.
So, first of all, with regard to the verdict, I'm pretty sure the jurors took about 6 minutes to find him guilty.
Right. Exactly.
And they were like, "Yo, we can't go out there. We can't go out there so fast." Like, they were sitting in there playing cards. I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean? That was And I don't think it was political. I think he's a scumbag.
Heck yeah.
Everybody's like, it's political. It's political. No, it's not. He's a scumbag. He admitted to openly grabbing women's private parts. Like, of course, grabbing them.
Grabbing,
of course
like nasty.
Like literally grabbing them.
Nasty, violent. Anyway.
Yeah, you can't call this.
Yeah. It's not political.
Political verdict, I don't think.
No. Candy, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, the man is disgusting. But the thing about it was, when I heard the verdict, I actually have had interaction with E. Jean Carroll. We're Facebook friends.
Oh, wow.
Because yeah, she actually was part of the inception of Talkify, which is a matchmaking company that I worked with for a while. And, when I was working with the company, I befriended her, and, we've had messages and exchanges talking about the love and dating industry. And, she used to be an advice columnist. And so when I heard the verdict, I posted on her Facebook page, "You go, girl." With like exclamations.
I mean,
but because I was excited for her vindication. I didn't know about it from our interactions then. We didn't have that personal of a relationship that's something she probably would have shared with me. But, in hearing about it in the news and stuff, I was really happy for her that she got the validation, the vindication for what she was saying. But what's weird to me is that in that article, they describe actual penis insertion, but they didn't indict rape. Like I didn't make that connection. Like, I'm wondering what happened where rape was dropped out of it and it became just sexual abuse.
You know what? Because she said she couldn't remember. That's
right.
why. She very
Mm.
specifically said she couldn't remember.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So there was like no
Okay.
witness, like she didn't have any
She couldn't
recollection,
prove, like,
but like it was, it's a long time ago. But yeah,
Mhm.
she
yeah,
basically was like, I
yeah,
don't remember, which immediately took rape off the table.
yeah. Wow.
That was,
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense if there's, it's that long ago and there was no way to prove. But, either way, it's like, and I get that there has to be some sort of defining of the word in order for people to be fairly tried.
Mhm.
But I feel like the man has such a reputation.
I
I know.
I almost feel like if I were on that jury and I know you're supposed to be impartial, I would be like, the guy's a dick. He grabs he grabs women
By the way,
pussy.
he's a walking
Here's my
dick. He's not
answer.
just a dick. He's like
Right?
literally a walking dick.
Well,
Yeah, and there's enough out there that that proves that he's sexually lascivious and doesn't know how to treat women. I don't know how they were at all impartial to be able to say, well, because they can't prove penis insertion. I mean, I feel like his whole life is proof of sexual abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That's it. By the way, that's his legacy. Congratulations.
Mhm. Right? Right?
and
Ugh.
and here's the thing too. I mean, when the verdict was called a couple of days ago, and a lot of reporters were asking, E. Jean Carroll's attorney about, well, this is the end of this 30-year saga, almost 30-year saga for her, and da 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 da. And then you have this town hall where Donald Trump claimed in that town hall that he never met her just the day after the jury ruled in this case. And so now her attorney, with E. Jean Carroll, they basically announced that, listen, everything is on the table and that she might have to sue him again for defamation because he basically smeared her again.
Yeah.
As we just made the case, he's a walking dick.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
like, you're just stupid, man.
Yeah. Wow. So listen, what I'd like to do is, especially in the next segment, talk a little bit about just the reality of sexual assault cases and get your feedback on that. And specifically, does this case move the needle, right? Is this, it was so highly publicized over, specifically over the last couple of years because of the fact that, the statute of limitations, I guess, ran out on the original criminal case. And then the new law in New York allowed her to sue Donald Trump in the civilly for defamation. And,
that new law is very problematic.
Yeah. And so, I really want to get, a robust discussion about this, keeping in mind, my dear loved ones and friends like you and my other family in mind, because this is real. This is people's lives that we're talking about. And so, really want to have a robust discussion about this. And so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking about the future after the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. And one thing that I want to kind of begin this next segment with was some statistics from the RAND organization about reporting of sexual assaults. And basically 2 out of 3 sexual assaults go unreported to the police. And as you can see from our statistic here, only 50 reports leads to arrest, 28 cases lead to a felony conviction, and 25 people get incarcerated from these cases. And that's 25 out of 1,000 sexual assaults. And so, again, this is about people's lives. And so, Tami, as a victim of sexual assault, I'll go to you first. Do you think this moves the needle at all, this case? Or, is it important to the greater scheme?
No, it doesn't do anything for the greater case. And the problem, what I think is problematic is that they enacted this law, which she was able to bring charges against him. Mm-hmm. It's only good for 1 year.
1 year.
It's not even a permanent law. So I think the law is problematic. I don't know why they put a time limit on it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think Trump's, one of his defense points was you weren't screaming, you weren't shouting, all of these cases, they're different depending on the circumstance.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that she won. I think, like I said, the jurors, it took them 5 minutes to figure that out. But I don't think it does any far-reaching change for victims of sexual assault.
Right. Candy, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I feel like it's such a just such a subjective thing. It would be really hard for any particular case to be the defining case for all. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like there's just so many nuances to, part of it, first of all, is if, let's say this were something that were tried in Florida, we probably would have had a different outcome.
Wow.
Right. So there's that piece of it. And then I think about all the sexual assaults. I mean, I'm a victim of sexual assault as well, but all of the ones throughout history, this one in particular makes me think of Donald Trump, old now, but think every young frat boy, the ones that have, some sort of financial support behind them, the ones that don't, what happens, the difference between when they do something they're not supposed to do, when they hurt someone, when they don't understand that no means no. It's like there's so many layers to how it all plays out. And also it relies on, just the ability to discern that something that happens between two people, discern what that is. So I feel like it's just such a complicated thing for any one case to be the determining factor, even a famous case. It's just such a difficult thing. And I've had a platform of, as women, how do we keep ourselves safe for a long time, but with also the resentment that we have to keep ourselves safe.
Exactly. That's it right there.
Right. Like, who's teaching men how to keep women safe?
That's
well, who's teaching men how to be men?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's not interested, you keep it moving. Like, I actually had that conversation with my son when he was 13.
Yeah.
It's not even, you said something interesting. Who's teaching men how to keep women safe, but who's teaching
Yeah.
men how to be men?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Because also it's keeping themselves safe. And what I've never understood is why a lot of men who aren't they don't get that. Like,
Right.
I keep myself safe by not hurting someone
Right.
else.
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't end up having to be accused of rape. I don't end up having to be,
Yeah.
ostracized by my community or make my parents mad if I'm young.
Yeah.
Or like what Donald Trump just dealt with. He didn't want to do this court case. He didn't even want to show up. You wouldn't have to deal with that
See,
stuff if
that's
you didn't
the
hurt women.
see, and that's
Your life would be way less complicated if you weren't a
It'd be
rapist.
way less
and Candy, I think you just hit the nail on the head, right? Because I think number one, men, specifically more men with means, that all that becomes normalized, and it's like, oh well, you just have to get through this. Poor, this person, well, her skirt was too high, or all of these kinds of things, all this BS that's talked about women, that normalizes men's behavior when it's violent, because that's what we're talking about here. I mean, I think that's the other piece of this, right? That the violence of the act has been taken out, and it becomes all this sexual promiscuous kind of notion around it, right? And then the other piece of this is that especially the men with means have the ability to move through this and get rewarded for making it through. I mean, we have not one but two Supreme Court justices that have been accused, and I'm doing in air quotes here, accused of sexual assault.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Supreme Court is a whole nother.
Yeah,
but it's just extremely problematic.
Exactly.
The whole court makeup.
Exactly. But I only bring it up because of, again, if only 1 out of a third of these cases are even reported. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't know someone that is a victim of sexual assault in some way, shape, or form. So
By
what
the
does
way,
that
that
tell
looks
you?
really differently, Brian, too. Like, just to level set, like sexual assault isn't just, Donald Trump trying to raping somebody, and there's there's a lot of different variations.
Absolutely.
I'm not at all surprised that women don't report. I didn't report. I know we sort of like skimmed over it, but the fact that somehow they enacted a law that's only good for 1 year for you to come forward is so wrong on so many levels. Like, why would you? I don't understand that. Like,
is it a year from the actual assault, or is it?
No, it's a calendar year from the law. Like when the law got enacted.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Like I think it ends on Thanksgiving.
Oh,
so if you haven't gotten it together, if you haven't decided that you're ready to come forward,
within a year,
after Thanksgiving, you're out of luck.
It goes bloop. Wow. It goes away.
Yeah.
I know we're coming up on the next break, but just want to let people know, some of the statistics that I bring up. Yeah. The reason why I brought up these statistics is not to shame or blame anybody. It's to let people know that this is something that is happening. It is real. It is affecting people's lives, especially a larger group of women. And there are men that also are go through this as well. And that we can't turn a blind eye to it. I mean, this is violence, in a very personal way. And so, I want to make sure that, that we're talking about this and even coming up with, what should we be talking about? And that's the next piece of this, and how should we be handling these cases? And so while we take a quick break, And then when we come back, we'll talk more about like what are the questions we need to really be asking here, right? When it comes to these kind of cases. And so we're going to take a really, really quick break, and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking about the future after the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. And the question I want to pose to both of you is, I mean, part of this may be we're asking the wrong questions to seek wrong answers about this. Do you believe that? Or no?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
We're asking about?
Yeah,
So,
say that again.
You know, I think sometimes when we're trying to figure out what the solutions are, we're asking ourselves or what should be the correct answer, or the question that needs to be asked, that needs to be answered. So for instance, E. Jean Carroll, the criminal part of the statute of limitations ran out. So the question that I think that they asked was, well, what do we do about this case specifically with other women, right? Is that the right question? Because the answer that they came up with is something that is temporary, it is limited. It has nothing to do about the statute of limitations when it comes to cases like this, which is probably something that they probably should have looked at before this. That's where I'm getting at. That's where I'm going to.
I don't know. Like, I'm not a lawyer.
Right?
That feels like a legal question that I am not equipped to answer.
Should there be a statute of limitations on these cases?
No, absolutely not. That's why I'm so upset that there was like a year. They have given women in New York a year to decide if they're ready to come forward.
So that's what I mean.
It's completely problematic.
Exactly.
But you know, the other side of this, Brian, sorry, Candy, just to get away. We can't talk about the legality because we're not lawyers. But what we can talk about is why we're not raising better men. Like, what's not happening when they're boys, right? Where they think that they're privileged or entitled.
Entitled to.
Yeah.
Well, then that's another question, right? I mean, I think the part of the legal questions are really easy to answer, right? There shouldn't be.
But also, it does tie together, though.
Right, exactly.
The legal question and the raising of men does tie together, because I think the statute of limitations is about protecting men. Right. So it's like, are we sending, what's the message that we're sending, that we will protect you? And here's the thing. I think it's about protecting men because, yes, innocent until proven guilty, but it's the men who are falsely accused, which the problem with that is that the statistic is much, much smaller.
Yes,
so the message that a statute of limitations sends is that you will ultimately deserve protection around this. Let's say you did it, 20 years ago, and now you have a family and you have formed your life, so you shouldn't have to deal with that sort of thing. Or if you were falsely accused. Only thing is like, you can't make the law for the smallest group in the statistic. It has to be an overall thing. And I feel like that message of there is no statute of limitations would be part of raising better men. Because knowing that if I do something bad to someone for the rest of my life, I have the possibility of being indicted for it.
Exactly.
That I think would be a little bit more of a hindrance in itself.
Right.
And it's just a small part of raising better men. But society.
And just to kind of get on that, and then we can talk more about this raising men part, right? Look at the depth and breadth of how like murder is defined, right? I mean, it is defined so deeply, from manslaughter to second degree to first degree and everything in between. With sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, it's not so much, right? And so again, it's about holding people accountable when they do commit acts. But let's make that turn. Let's make that connection. And so, Tami, I know you were talking about this, and Candy, you were too, about, the socialization of men to where it's okay for them to even think about being violent toward a woman this way. Let's talk about that part.
I think this conversation is exhausting because our entire society tilts toward men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it's inequity in pay,
Mm-hmm.
The old boys network, the glass ceiling, like it literally is prevalent in every part of our society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I came back to, like, we can't count on society to create fairness and equity. I feel like it all starts, I've said this before, I just think it starts in the home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have 3 brothers, no sisters. They have grown up to be great men because they had one sister that they had to protect. I know that doesn't answer your question, Brian, but I do think
No. I think that this is a complex situation, and I think that in of itself makes it easy for men in general at the macro level who are controlling a lot of these levers to get out of being accountable and responsible for their actions. And so I think one of the purposes of doing this show, even though it is exhausting, I mean, I'm very emotional around this.
Can I tell you, Brian,
yeah.
can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you why I'm exhausted, like, right now about this.
Mm-hmm.
I had a strategic planning session last week. Remember I told you I was in Atlanta?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
It was about 4 women in the room. Maybe 5, 4 or 5 women in the room, 3 guys. When a woman said anything, it was literally ignored.
Wow.
It didn't make it up onto the piece of paper on the board. Nobody commented on it.
Wow.
And ultimately, there was a whole conversation between the 3 of the guys, which basically was our strategic planning session.
Wow.
I was so blown away that in 2023, this is still happening. And by the way, I have more experience than any of those people doing strategic planning. But it was like a slap in the face.
Wow.
Of how little things have changed.
Wow.
So that's why I said I don't even think it's about the laws. I don't know, Candy, what you think. It just feels like, why are we're still just having the same conversation we've been having for 50 years?
Yeah. Since before the women's movement. So also, I was mentioning last week how I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale.
Wow.
Right? Which is very
speaking of inequality.
Right, exactly. And I'm binging it. I don't want to, like, for anybody who hasn't binged it yet, which I know I'm late in the game, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I'm at a part of it now where it things are starting to evolve, where the oppressors are starting to feel the repercussions and the pain of who they've been and how they've been.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I always, I'm challenged to wrap my mind around, how as a people, as a group of people, and even as individuals, we don't understand how far-reaching and how self-affecting we are when we oppress and abuse others. And so we live in this, I'm putting in this patriarchy, right? Where for so long, men have just been assumed, entitled, whatever it is that they say has taken precedence, or when you're in certain rooms, that men are the dominant force and there's a level of women are less important. And where has that gotten us?
It's working for them.
Well, I don't know that it is, because that's the thing
is.
about The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
If you watch like the nuances of what's happening to them, and obviously that's the extreme, right? And that's a direction that around abortion laws we're going in. But when you watch what's happening to them, and it's like when you look at slavery and you watch what happened to slave owners and what their family legacies have been, we assume because a lot of them are wealthy that somehow they have gotten away with something. But it's been part of the destruction of the fabric of our entire society. Right. The reason that we have, school shooters is because there was oppression in this country that went unchecked, and everybody experiences the karma from it. So it's always amazing to me that, I don't want to say just men, because, women as well, but societally, that men who are oppressive, men who do feel like they are somehow superior, whether it's because they have a penis or because they're white or whatever, never get to the understanding of, I am hurting myself by hurting others. Like ultimately, I will have to pay a price for the way that I, navigate the world, or who I assume myself to be. Right. I think Donald Trump is a perfect poster child for that. Even though he has a victim mentality, to me, I can't wrap my mind around, like, when you are indicted so many times, when people are constantly accusing you, when people feel the way they feel, your response is, I'm the victim of it. Like, there's just no seeing of how who you be produces what you experience.
But Candy, you assume, let's talk about just Donald Trump for 1 second. You assume Donald Trump has some sort of insight into himself.
No, that's my point. Like,
right, but by the way, I don't think anybody else does either. Like, I don't think slave owners.
That's
now
my
these
point.
are like okay, all right.
Yeah, like I don't understand why there is no insight, because there is repercussions. These aren't people who are just skipping around scot-free. They're constantly having to pay lawyers to get out of things. They're constantly, having family losses and disconnections, and I mean they go through things. And granted, it's not like a lot of the oppression that they have what's the word I'm looking for, maybe caused or been a part of, right? But it's amazing to me that there is no insight, and that's my point. Like,
but as long as you could pay your way out of it, you'll never get insight.
Yeah,
you're never gonna have that moment where you're sitting, like, I don't know, on your couch thinking, like, what did I do?
But then that would mean that as human beings, like, if I can pay my way, because you can, on that every level, we can on some level get out of something, right? But it's like you still have that part of you that knows that you might have paid this money, but like, look at Harvey Weinstein, right? Like, here's someone who I think he's still
the original dick. He's still in jail. He's the original walking dick.
Yeah. Still in jail, but it's like, is there a part where you're like, okay, so here now I am suffering? Because whatever he, like, I don't know what the whole details of that case, or the case with Harvey Weinstein are, or what his sentence is, or anything like that. But he had enough money to have it go as easy as possible for him as he could, right? And it still ended up in jail. So we get to physically see that he's in jail. But I feel like, in my belief, that in your mind, when you've done something, you can't get away from the karma of it. So in our societal minds, we see, oh, he paid his way out of, having to go to like the worst possible jail, or he paid his way out of having to be in jail for very long, or he maybe even paid his way to innocence. But did he really prevent himself from suffering? Because I think that's something karma takes care of. We just don't see it.
Well, the sentencing, not to say that this equals anything that people went through, but he's basically going to spend the rest of his natural life in jail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's old as hell.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And talk about karma. That's karma. Right.
Yeah.
Where
we don't always see it. We don't always get to see it like with him.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Which is disappointing. Like, Why don't they blend the cameras in the jail every now and then so we can see how miserable his life is? Just show us his misery every now and then so we can feel vindicated, somewhat justified. You know what I mean?
How's that toilet working out for you?
Yeah. Except I'm pretty sure he's in like, I think he's in like a federal prison, which is like a country club. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. But even that, so it feels like, okay, so he's gotten special privileges. But, you know, like we don't know what the actual, you know, and I'm saying this very carefully because I think for some people they're like, oh, you know, what is it that he can't, you know, rape women anymore? He can't get an erection. He can't eat the food he wants to eat. He can't live that lavish life that he wants to live. But when you're someone who's narcissistic and entitled, that is a hell, right? And whatever he's mentally doing with that, like that is, you know, he's in his own personal hell. And it might not be the same hell that he put others through. But in some ways, I believe that it is. I can't help but believe that the yin and the yang, the karmic return of life, it's like we get to experience exactly what is our worst hell when we're willing to inflict it on others.
And I think too, you know, you look at people that can get convicted and sentenced to a certain amount of time in jail. Maybe they spend the rest of their natural life in jail. Jail ain't fun. And it wreaks havoc on, you know, you see the people that come in and come out, and when they come out, it's like, that's the same dude.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, I think Candy, you're right. I think there is some karma here. Wanted to just mention really quickly that I know we're talking about a lot of the more painful parts of this. There are some green shoots of progress that I think a lot of people just don't know about. I think when there's that when we talk about laws and things that are passed and that kind of thing, there's such a partisan spin on everything that becomes the noise, and the noise is so loud you don't see the other maybe positive things that are happening. And so just want to let people know that, like, for instance, I don't know if either both of you know this, but in 2005, there was a law passed called the Violence Against Women Act, right? Part of that law that was passed was a program called Engaging Men Grant Program. And it created funds that engages men in preventing violence against women and developing mutually respectful, non-violent relationships. And so there was a program that was created called Futures, which was done in 2011, where they partner with the Justice Department, that basically supporting to engaging men and youth to prevent violence against women. And I was like, when I saw this, it's like, what? And I'm showing the website here. We'll put the website in our chat. But I was like, man, this is a really, really good program. And I know it's not the end all to end all, but I was like, this is in part what we've been talking about, right? Where you're engaging boys and young men at a very early age, and basically, you know, using resources to support ending this this violence against women. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that part up real quick, that there are some little green shoots here and there. It's not the end all to end all, but I think some of those things are things that we can build on in our communities and that kind of thing. So,
you know, I think it's interesting. I feel like I remember when I was in school, not like college, I mean like 5th grade or 6th grade. It was a conversation we had during health class.
Yes, it was. Yes, it
was. Yeah,
Thank
it was.
You, Tami. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I think it was uncomfortable, but it was like, they don't do that anymore.
No,
they don't have those conversations anymore.
Not well.
So I think that program is pretty cool, but I also think the schools should also. I think the schools play a role.
Well, this program is specifically designed to do things both in school and outside of the school, where it's changing the dynamic of like sex education in schools. again, I think this goes to men, patriarchy, and then how that affects political decisions, right? Where you've got school districts and that are creating whatever their guidance is around sex education, even if sex education even exists within their districts. And a lot of times it's become this partisan thing that, oh, well, that's the parent's role, right? To talk about that. Well, if you have a parent, especially a male parent, that's cool with violence against women, then guess what the son does?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. And so that's why I think a lot of this again, it's so complex, where it's both in the house, outside of the house, it's both community, it's both.
By the way, on TV,
Yeah.
you know,
absolutely.
It's shown in television and movies.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Like, and it's kind of glorified.
Exactly. It's like a Hollywood thing. Like, when are they going to stop doing that?
Exactly. And so, you know, there's you know, some things happening. You know, yeah, I know it's crazy that we're still kind of talking about this, and that it's exhausting and everything else, because this is again, it's the most violent, outside of murder, right? It's the most violent act that's amongst the continuum of patriarchy. And at the same time, if we don't talk about it, who will? And if we don't talk about it, what will what happens, right? I mean, like, this law is an example of it, right? I think that it was crazy that it took 6 years to develop the program after the law was passed, but hey, that's a whole.
We have to think about too, like, what prompts someone to be someone who wants to take over someone's bodily autonomy, and just the need and the want to do that. You know, yes, it comes from family conditioning and, you know, what you were taught, but also, you know, who you've been raised to be as far as how you view yourself. And it's the powerless that usually have negative ways of trying to take power.
Right.
And I think and we always go back to this, you know, men and their emotions and their, you know, I think that we're not biologically wired the same when it comes to how we deal with our emotions, or how we've been allowed to deal with our emotions societally. And I feel like it is important that young men, or people who identify as men, have programs where it is a safe space to feel how you feel, especially when they're young, and learn how to process and manage that. And we're such a society of where we eat and drink and drug our emotions and try to stuff things down. And I think that's also part of the problem of what we teach young men and young women. But, you know, with men, it turns into aggression, is that we got to work past getting, you know, this instant gratification. It's got to be okay to feel how you feel when you're a little boy, 5 years old, and, you know, someone hurts you, or, you know, you're telling your secret about something, or something went wrong. It's got to be okay to allow children to process those emotions. Otherwise, they become violent adults who want to take over someone else's bodily autonomy.
Yeah, like the playground bullies, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Playground bullies. Yeah.
So we should tag them, like, you know, they tag like dolphins to track them, so they can track them as they migrate. They should tag playground bullies so we could see what they grow up to become.
That's funny. Oh man. Well, listen. Great conversation, hard conversation. You know, I want to continue talking about this and talking more about, like, you know, what can we do? What can people do? What's the change that people can be to make that change? So I just want to say to both of you, thank you for having this conversation this morning.
Oh,
Seriously.
thank you.
Seriously. I mean, seriously.
It's complicated.
Yeah. In a whole host of things. Listen, really quickly, want to tell people about the beautiful things that both of you are doing, especially individually and collectively. Candy, I'll go to you. You've got some things happening. Anything specific that you want to kind of tell people about?
Yeah, if you go to CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com, I am going to be launching a digital course pretty soon by May 22nd. It's called Loving Relationships for Women of Color. And so go to my website, sign up for my newsletter so you know when that digital course is going to be launching. And what I'm mainly doing is supporting women of color, professional women of color, with creating a love life that loves us back. Because societally right now, there's a lot of disparities around dating and women of color. So
Sweet.
my mission is that we have the relationships that maybe our mothers, our grandmothers didn't have. Yeah.
Candy's so deep.
I know, right?
She's just so deep.
And Tami, you've got another Tami Talks coming up on Monday. You want to give us a sneak preview at all?
I do. No, but I could tell you generally, if you're interested in building more resilience in your life, whether it's in your relationships, like Candy and I had a great podcast last Monday talking about relationships.
Yes.
Whether it's at work or with your finance, tune into Tami's Table. I'm always going to have guests that can provide insight, not theoretical, because they've gone through it, and that's what I think is like super exciting. It's just learning from people.
Love
So
it.
yeah, Mondays 12 o'clock.
Love it. So everybody, you better watch. Just want to really quickly before we sign off, if you are a victim of rape or assault, we want to make sure that you have the support that you need. You can go to RAN, which is the largest organization supporting survivors of sexual violence, as well as their loved ones. They have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week support line that you can reach over the phone or by online chat. So please use that resource as well. Thank to both of you again, and thank you to all of you for joining us for another edition of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast on soulivity.com. Or you can go to KMET 1490 AM every Thursday and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific for all of you out on the West Coast that want to enjoy this show. So until next time, keep having real conversations with passion and purpose. Keep pushing toward creating that life full of high quality living, and live well and always do good. So we talk to you next time. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Brian.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.